I want to know if he's bunking up with Tyrrell, and if he's the big spoon or the little spoon. I think he'd be the little spoon just out of principle. Because Tyrrell's he's got the elderly gravitas.
Yeah, and that's true. And using those key stats, they are the key things that we use to pick out our markets. I don't appreciate the laughing because I recognize how fumbled that was as I lost my train of thought. But anyways, back to the market.
No.
Wait, what was that?
I like that you came back to start it off fresh. We're gonna do it live, damn it. 3, 2, 1.
And live is how we do it. That's what we do here on Tuesday nights on TSPN. This is Divots and Pivots. I'm Andrew LeDuc, joined as always by the one and only Bud Copeland. And I hope everyone enjoyed their St. Patty's Day weekend. I know I certainly did. Started early, ended early. I guess that's where I am in life. Just at that stage. I don't know about you, but I was having a great day. It was perfect. Nothing went bad with the day. All of a sudden, about 7 o'clock, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. I'm ready to be home in my sweatpants. And I think we were laying in bed by 8 and asleep by 9. And I was cool with that. I was fine with that. But how are you?
Had you not texted me from the various bars to give me updates on which bars were carrying the golf tournament and which weren't, I probably would have forgot it was St. Patty's Day. I am once again on the road. We're not in Witch Titty. Yep. Witch Titty? It's colder than a witch's titty outside. We are not in Witch City Studios tonight. We are in. What are you drinking? What's your show juice?
Smithwick's Red Ale for
Smittix.
Following up Smittix. Yeah, finishing up my my St. Patty's Day stash.
You're gross. I'm in lovely Manchester, New Hampshire. We are 2 minutes 20 seconds in before the first camp reference. I'm here for yet another camp conference, and yes,
stone's throw away from me.
Believe it or not, there are conferences for everybody, including camp people. But I'm overwhelmed right now, and this is one of those things where the stars aligned in the wrong way for me to be on the road for these last 2 weeks, because it's just been an avalanche of golf news. And for the, there's people who say, oh, Scottie went back to back. There's so much more going on. It's going to be a lot of live tonight. I hope you're in for it. Buckle up. Boudreaux might save golf. I think I thought I was onto something. I read Rory's comments publicly, and I'm glad he said them publicly and not to me privately. That way nobody can accuse me of plagiarism or accuse him of colluding. You know what I mean? But we have together identified where team golf lives in the future of golf. And with the latest news of that little I was about to say powwow, but I heard recently that we're retiring powwow. So I'll get on that bandwagon and say, there was a meeting, a gathering, a conference, if you even want to use that word, of power brokers in the game of golf down in the Bahamas yesterday. And I'm ready to get after it. So I don't even know where to start with opening thoughts other than feels great to be back with you here Tuesday night, TSPN, as always. Yes. Your hair looks magnificent. The flow looks good. I can tell you got a haircut, not too recently, but recently enough that it's grown out. Once again, I'm obviously flying the Acorn Hills flag. Hashtag
comment that was
for you.
I was like, I could tell you got your hair cut like 2 weeks ago, and you probably do again in another 2 weeks.
Man, listen, when I take off this magnificently comfortable and beautiful baby blue Acorn Hills hat, TBFY 15 for 15% off, you would see that Boudreaux has not needed nor paid for a haircut since probably, I don't know, freshman, sophomore year in college. The Clippers became my best friend and not the basketball team. And the only time, actually, that's a lie, and I didn't pay for it, but the day before my wedding, my wife made me grow my hair out what little I had left at that point all summer long. We got married in September. The season started in May. I didn't touch it for the entire summer, and then she had a professional touch me up, but she paid for it. So I still, as an adult, have never paid for a haircut. So I can appreciate it, but I don't understand it.
Impressive.
Much like you in golf, you can appreciate it, you just don't understand it. I'm just kidding. You're beating me. You're beating me in our season race right now, so I can't really talk too much shit.
So I haven't looked at the numbers, but it doesn't feel like it's even close. Am I wrong? I haven't even looked at the numbers.
All right. That was, shots fired a little bit there, but major seasons around okay, if you haven't been paying attention this season, Andrew and I are in a season-long race with one another, and it's a little homage to my other league, which I'm kind of in the middle of the pack right now. I need a win here soon. where you pick 4 players. We obviously have our emergency 9 here on Divots and Pivots, but you just pick these players and whatever money they win, that's the points you win. Simple as that. So we're keeping track of who wins weeks, who wins the overall race. So far right now, Andrew is up, I want to say 4 or 5 to 2, and then definitely a $5 or $6 million gap right now. But all it takes is to snag a major, get one of those big inflated paychecks. I saw a great stat. Scottie Scheffler's won something like $8.4 million in the last 2 weeks playing golf. It's good stuff out there right now. So enough babbling and grabbling. What is first? Do you want to get to the news, or do you have any opening thoughts that you want to start with? Because any opening thought that I hit tonight is going to lead us right into whatever ranting and raving we're doing about the golf universe. So I'm going to leave it up to you in as far as which, pick your poison. You want to recap the players, or do you want to dive into the other stuff first?
So let's recap the players quickly, because I do know once we get started on your stuff, it's going to be a slippery slope that brings us barely into fantasy time. So I was prepared to just give my opening thoughts. I'm even thinking about you.
I was actually going to say, if you wanted to get like crazy, we could rip out. All right. We found out that the John Deere Classic actually has a little more
we did
gravitas than we've been giving it credit for recently, because you can get punch your ticket to the Open Championship. Pretty big fucking deal. Mm-hmm. So no more crapping on John Deere.
No.
The Valspar, by the way, seems to be that it's primed for a little dumping ground. And I think the Valspar, the end of the Florida swing, it's where they're playing this week. Like you said, the Innisbrook Resort, Copperhead Course. I don't know what it is with Florida courses and naming their little closing swings, but we got the Snake Pit, which is their little closing set of holes, just like you had the Bear Trap over at PGA National. And they don't even have to name it. It's just the last 3 holes that the players are some of the most iconic in all of golf. And so the Florida swing, known for these closing runs here. But I got to say that this is definitely, when we talk about the future of golf in a little bit, the tournaments that might be left out, the Puerto Rico Open, the Barbasol, these kind of, and when I say left out, I don't think that those tournaments are going to move anywhere. I think wherever elite golf is going to move up, if that makes any sense. So what I was going to say is, if you want, we can rip through the Valspar real quick and then get into the nitty gritty of the golf world and not leave that way. If you tuned in early and you just want our wisdom and our picks, I'll let Andrew go first. And that way we can, because I don't even have a key 3 this week.
Let's do that, because then, because I have a feeling we're going to be able to be touching on some points from the players this past week as we're talking about all the other stuff, because I bet you they could cross over a little bit. Let's get into, because you mentioned it's Innisbrook, and it's actually a very beautiful course. The Snake Pit, it's Copperhead Course. Like, this is so, like, you say this could be the new, like, John Deere be dumping on. Like, I don't feel that way just because the course itself. Now, look, I know the field isn't the strongest, but it's still not a terrible field. We got some guys. There's Xander, Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Brian. I mean, like, there's guys in this field that are worth watching. Some guys that just are exciting for their names nowadays. Minwoo Lee is always a fan favorite to watch right now. So there's some names in this field that, sure, it's not the greatest field, but it's doable. But what we're looking at for this week with Innisbrook is that it is a par 71, 7,200 to 7,400 yard course, Bermuda grass. So this is it's a typical Florida kind of course here. And when it comes to my key 3, it actually looks very similar to TPC Sawgrass last week for me. I'm still keeping par 4, 450 to 500 in there. I'm still keeping bogey avoidance in there. The only difference I'm going with this week is I'm going with strokes gained off the tee. And I'm debating messing with my formula a little bit here going forward and making strokes gained off the tee one of my staples every week to mix in with approach and putter, and then find an obscure 2 other stats to kind of roll with. But for now, strokes gained off the tee, bogey avoidance, and par 4's 450 to 500 were the 3 key stats I saw kind of trending the most useful this week.
First of all, thank you for watching. If you don't follow me on Instagram at thisbuds4you, in honor of Scottie Scheffler's back-to-back wins, where he led the field in strokes gained off the tee, both at the Arnold Palmer and the Players, that's the key to win in the Florida swing. He was 37th in putting at the Players. And so I don't have a key 3 this week. Like I said, I'm on the road. I'm kind of shooting from the hip. I do have an emergency 9 because I feel like a bounce-back tournament like this is going to have one of 2 winners. You're going to have a guy who is my number 1 this week, who is kind of starting to hit his stride again. and he's going to pick up a win somewhere. And I'm not talking about Justin Thomas. He's in my emergency 9 because I think he falls in that category. He had a shit week at Ponte Vedra, but he's been playing so well overall in this kind of comeback tour that this is that kind of low-hanging fruit where Jordan Spieth did kind of knock his slide once or twice with the John Deere Classic. So I could see JT picking up a Valspar, something like that. So I'm really looking at either who wasn't in Ponte Vedra last week, who's been playing well and primed, or who played well last week and isn't Wyndham Clark, even though Wyndham's not playing this week, but isn't so gutted by their performance. You saw X up there saying, listen, it's just another one of a long list of kind of coming up short. It's going to happen, moving on. And I think that's why a guy like Xander might win this week too. So they're bouncing around my emergency 9, but I'm looking at either form, really just form, whether you win Ponte Vedra last week or not, is going to be the tell for me from my 30,000 foot view in my emergency 9.
No, I like that. And as a little tease going forward for our emergency 9, which we're about to give you, we both have the same guy at the top. So if you want the ultimate show bell ring, if you want the ultimate show bell ringer for a guy that is a must win, who you can heard it here first. We're predicting a win out of apparently. Stick around here in a couple minutes because we're going to get into the emergency 9 right now. That's right. The emergency bells are ringing, and it's time for the 9 guys that you can rank to play on your DraftKings and your office pool and your underdog fantasy, whatever you choose to take in your fantasy golf, where some people still find crazy that exists, but it's actually a ton of fun and a ton of different ways to play it. So let's get started. Straight out at my number 9, 8, and 7 for me. We're going back to a Ryder Cup special here. Sepp Straka, someone who a lot of people probably learned about it at the Ryder Cup, but we had known about it for a while. So Sepp Straka coming in at number 9 for me. Billy Ho at number 8, making his first appearance of the year, probably his only appearance of the year as well. This is more of a long shot for me. And then Ben Silverman. Ben Silverman, come on down. You're up next on The Price is Right. Ben Silverman comes in at number 7 for me. He's just a guy that hit the stats just right for me this week, and it's that type of field. Like I said, it's a decent field, but it's not crazy, crazy over the top field. So Ben Silverman sliding into like a top 15, top 20 wouldn't shock me here at all. Following that up with 6, 5, and 4, I got Justin Thomas, the guy you mentioned at number 6 for me. Doug Gim, a guy who had a crazy fun chip in on the 17th this past week at the Players, and then Nick Taylor, who's been playing fantastic golf. Already has that one win this year. He's playing great golf. He's going to come in at my number 4, and then number 3, the defending champ. Yes, the defending champ from last year, Taylor Moore, comes in at number 3. He's still actually playing decent form right now. Do I have that wrong? He won this last year, didn't he?
Yep.
I was gonna say you made a face that like I was completely wrong on my research.
I got some allergy thing going on, it feels like I've got a wasp's nest growing in my nose. Thanks. That's what people wanted to hear about.
Fantastic fun. Well, Taylor Moore comes in at number 3 for me, the defending champ, and then another guy you mentioned, X going to give it to you, Xander Schauffele. He comes in at number 2, and then my number 1 is Sam Burns again. Third week in a row for me. Sam Burns is my number 1 in my emergency 9. He struggled in round 1 this past week at TPC, but he looked great in all the other rounds following that. So I like Sam Burns. He's going to put this together here, and I'm going to keep riding it until it comes true. So Sam Burns is my number 1 for my emergency 9. Bud, what do you have cooking for yours? What life vest are you going to throw the folks?
Shit. If you're relying on me to actually save you, then you got bigger problems. But I'm going to start from the top and actually go in opposite order because you're right. We agree. Number 1 for me, Sam Burns. I alluded to it earlier. Number 2 is Justin Thomas. Both those guys feel like they're on the cusp of that, completing whatever comeback they're on. Mav McNeely, Aaron Rye, Brian Harmon are 3, 4, and 5 in my emergency 9. You'll notice a pattern emerging here. All of these people played really well at Ponte Vedra. Doug Gim, as you mentioned, Xander is number 7. Akshay is the one who didn't necessarily perform, but at the same time, I feel like this is one of those tournaments where Akshay he's already won on the PGA Tour, but I want to say it was it's kind of like that shoulder season win where this might be where he quote unquote breaks out on a bigger stage. And then number 9, Christian Bezuidenhout, who is one of your fan favorites, but he finished 11 under last week. So like I said, I'm riding a lot of hot hands from Ponte Vedra down to, the other side of Florida in the Copperhead Snake Pit.
Yeah, and a lot of you guys there, including Aaron Rye and Christian, they both were guys who once again had one bad round this past week, but then other than
Yeah.
that, kind of shot lights out this past weekend. So love all that. So those are our emergency nine for you folks, and we'll get in the fantasy business right out of the way to start the gate, because what we're going to get into next year as we prepare for Innisbrook and the Valspar Championship this week is apparently golf needs saving, and apparently Bud Copeland here is the mass crusader that the golf world needs. It probably doesn't deserve. I'll say that the golf world does not deserve the saving power that you are about to drop on this show here. You've heard it first. Divots and Pivots. Bud saves LIV. Of all things to save, LIV. This should be interesting. Bud, take it away.
I'm gonna start off with fuck LIV. We're not saving LIV. We're saving golf.
Yes.
And you're right. You don't deserve me. You deserve way better than me, but you got me for tonight. And like you said, there's a lot going on out in the world of golf right now. And I alluded to it earlier. There's some power brokers down in the Bahamas, but taking it back 3 steps into looking back at the Players Championship this past weekend. For a very long time, there's been some chatter about not having enough juice. There's a certain outlet out there that they've been saying no juice in these PGA Tour. You and I are a glass half full. We want to see the silver lining. And so I understand their objective criticism of the lacking of the juice. However, I think what you and I are pointing at is where they see lacking of juice. We see, budding new stars who are going to be competing and providing the juice later on. But that's neither here nor there. What we got out of the Players Championship this year, you could not have scripted it better. So 50 years ago, the history of this tournament was such that golf was kind of in a similar position. It wasn't fractured, but there was a yearning for a stage where just the tippy top of the competitive golfers get in. The opens are open, so naturally you're going to have some either amateurs or some qualifiers in there. A lot of the other regular golf tournaments, they have sponsors exemptions, or there might be top guys sitting out because it's not a tough enough challenge like we have nowadays. So Dean Beeman in 1974, they finally played the first Players, and they said the top 144 guys, come on out, let's line it up. And the idea being, if you identify that top 144 or whatever the number has changed to over the years, those are the people who have contributed to the success of the tour over the last year. Therefore, they should be invited to this keystone event for the tour. It was not just created for another spot. It wasn't trying to create, they weren't even trying to create a major. They were just trying to create a way literally to say thank you to the players by providing them an opportunity to showcase their talents and say thank you again, because they are treated like kings at this thing. Now, you talk about the players, it's one of their favorite places to go. They're treated well. Everything's top notch. And that's just the beginning of it. So they wanted this tournament. Jack Nicklaus wins the first one, and all of a sudden, boom, we've got a classic because Jack won it. The golden hair boy in the golden era of golf in 1974 saying, this is ours, and this is what we wanted for, and this is going to be important. I mean, if Al Geiberger wins the 1974 Players, no disrespect, Al, I don't know if it launches as big as it did. It also helps that Jack picked up another couple of players before they even moved it over to the Players' current home at TPC Sawgrass. So it's got this legacy. Now, coming into this year, I picked a bone or had a little beef with Paul McGinley because he was out there chirping about how you don't have the LIV guys and you don't have the DP tour as much as you used to. And over the history, the Europeans have been shut out and blah, 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 blah. Because again, I think what Mr. McGinley was getting into was this kind of esoteric, over the top, almost too deep look into what should be on display. And as much he might not like hearing this because he is a competitor. He's a Ryder Cup captain. He's a Ryder Cup winner. He's Paul McGinley. I mean, he's great. But what we're talking about with the players in professional golf is a product. We're not here for your amusement or your competition. We need you to compete. We want you to be engaging. But you got to remember those purses and all the notoriety came because of people like us and our eyeballs. So we want an engaging product. We're not too caught up with the politics of it all. You saw that on Sunday. Nobody, and obviously because NBC and the partnerships, but even online, I didn't hear see too much chatter about, oh, if Brooks and Bryson were there, they would have given that a run for the money. You pointed it out in Morningwood, where half of that leaderboard, half that top 10 were major champions, and the other half were chomping a bit. So start with that. We finally had this full field, cream of the crop. The number one player in the world ends up coming behind, shooting 64 on Sunday. He's 11 under on his last 20 holes, or 21 holes, something crazy like that. and he goes back to back to set, historic first for this tournament. And then everybody exhales and they're like, okay, that is what a golf tournament should look like. There was a commercial interruption. There was a metric F ton of cameras everywhere because that golf course, TPC Sawgrass, was designed with the spectator in mind. Everything from the stadium hills to the layout, the back and the forth. We talked about this last week. It was laid out with the spectator in mind. And if you were watching on Sunday, you saw 25,000 people in that 17, and then how everybody shifted to 18 up the right side, and watching Wyndham Clark and the putt and the lip out. It was everything that golf wants to be. And I'll say, again, due respect to Mr. McGinley, I don't think that Bryson or Brooks or anybody on that LIV tour, Cam Smith, who I don't care, I don't think that changes the math too much. Somebody's going to chirp me and be like, you mean to tell me if Ben Silverman's not there? And no, I'm just saying, this has been the beauty of the PGA Tour all along. It's big, it's deep. Yep. There is talent after talent after talent, and it means just a little bit more. Mr. Chambly said it last week. LIV is kind of a blip. It's a moment in the story of golf, not in PGA golf, but in golf in general. It is a moment, and it did disrupt things. But as Andrew alluded to just a minute ago, where they monumentally and royally screwed up was they forgot that at the end of it all, at the end and the beginning of it all, golf is an individual sport. And earlier this week, Rory McIlroy was talking about how he has met with Yasser. Yasser, if you're for the uninitiated, Mr. Yasser, I'm not going to say his last name, Al Ramonian or something like that. He's the chairman of the Saudi Public Investment Fund.
You just mixed Jay Moynihan's last name into that.
Well, that's going to be the title. The chief operating officer for this new entity is going to be Mr. Yasser El Moina Ranahan. But Rory came out and said that Mr. Yasser is the chairman of the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and that's where people forgot. This was never going to be a merger between LIV and PGA Tour. The ownership group of LIV said, hey, we've got more money that we would like to invest, and we understand that we just launched this competitor of yours, but we still like your product, so maybe we can get invested in yours, and we'll see what happens with this other. It's been a leverage piece this whole time.
Some may say LIV was their way into the PGA Tour all along, that was just created for their avenue to get there.
1,000,000%. Hey, here's this competitor or potential competitor, and no, we're not going away. Anyway, so Rory said, met with the guy. I think he's got a great vision. And he said, and at the end of the day, people misunderstand. They're a sovereign wealth fund. Whether the politics of it aside, please remove the politics from this conversation. But on an objective level, they're a sovereign wealth fund. They want to park their money with a product that's going to make money over time. That's the PGA Tour. It's got a proven track record of doing that. And it does need injections and change and shakeups from time to time, as we've seen with PGA Tour Enterprises and this potential partnership. So Rory came out recently and said, I think we should hear him out. And I guess that's what happened is there was a bunch of those player directors and at the behest or the urging of Jay Monahan and some of the other players said, come down to the Bahamas, meet with these guys. Let's at least all sit in the same room and talk about what we want out of the future of golf. And it seems to me that two things have jumped out from these conversations, and then we can get into how I'm going to save all of it. Two things have jumped out from these conversations. A, Peter Malnati, who is a player director, and he's been around, he's a very sharp guy, made it pretty clear that one of the stipulations that's on his brain, meaning, and probably everybody else's, whatever equity structure is coming up with this PGA Tour Enterprises. Remember, PGA Tour Enterprises, we're not going to notice a lot of difference from the fan side of things, right? New tournaments, new angles, new this, new that. But the PGA Tour Enterprises is a for-profit entity that's going to allow the PGA Tour to basically help these guys make more money. And they're going to do it also through an equity share program. And Peter Malnati was saying, I think that's got to be limited to the folks who stuck around, which is, if you read between the lines, if you took your bag and went to LIV, consider that your parting gift, even if you do come back and play on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, you took your money guaranteed up front. You don't get the long-term contract.
Right. You took the lump sum, not the annuity. So that was one thing. And then another was that, is that Rory was talking about how the team aspect seems to be super important to the PIF and to Mr. Yasser. And I actually think, and the way he said it was, if they can figure out a way to remember that this is an individual game and let the team aspect come in on the periphery, I think that they could have a product there. And that's when I had the epiphany, and I texted you and I was like, you know what? I already saved the world rankings last week. If you missed the show last week,
You did.
I did. I saved the world rankings last week. I'm going to save the rest of golf this week. The world rankings should just be the Ryder Cup rankings. Who the powers that be with the Ryder Cup get together and just figure out a way to. We're smart folks. It's all numbers. It's all freaking numbers at the end of the day. So just somebody sit down and figure out how you can include everybody, but make the Ryder Cup be that carrot that they're all chasing. And there you go. There are your rankings to find out who's the best in the world. We don't need a singular one. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. This week with team golf can stick around, but it's got to just be the current format's got to be blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the pitch for LIV was, come try something different, come try something this, be a part of a team. And then we're going to sell these teams and everybody's going to love the fireballs. No matter what, we can try as hard as we want to force team golf on the world. It's not going to take hold because by definition, you don't need a team to play golf. It's an individual sport. And people who say it's just a mindset, you're right, for a short period of time. But us as audience members, we don't play on teams in golf. It's not a relatable thing. We do from time to time play in like buddy matches. And that's where you can keep that team aspect. So follow me here. First of all, blow up the fireballs, the crushers, everybody, fuck them. It's a stupid idea they're forcing. Instead, keep it with, let's say 60 guys. We'll have 12 teams, 60 guys. You can do the math. There's always going to be 12 people sitting out every week. The end of this year, and this is where you can start taking notes. Do we want to check in with Underdog first? I think we should check in with Underdog first.
This is probably a good spot to check in with Underdog. And
I think we should.
One quick thing to throw in here, because you're mentioning the popularity and the individuality. This was an observation I had this weekend at one of the bars during the St. Patrick's Day festivities this weekend. Golf. I asked for golf to be put on. The bartender is talking. Oh, I love Dustin Johnson, my favorite golfer. And I just went, oh, that's interesting. I was like, oh yeah, he's over on the LIV tour now. And she goes, oh, what? And she had no clue. Like, okay, like whatever, Dustin Johnson. And she goes, yeah, and I like that young guy too. I'm like, okay, young guy. What young guy? I'm trying to figure out what young guy you're talking about. And then I had this epiphany when I put this together. She's thinking of Dustin Johnson from when he was on the PGA Tour, and not just like right before LIV, but from like his peak years ago.
Yeah, homeboy's got more gray than I do in his beard.
And I'm like, okay, who was the young, hot, popular mainstream guy that the casual golfer would have known at that same point? Me. Yes, other than Bud Copeland. Yeah. The young guy she's talking about is Jordan Spieth. She was that Spieth guy, and I was like, whoa. And then it just hit me. I said, even the casual golf fan, I should say, is going to remember these guys from their peaks on PGA. They don't know anything about what they're doing on LIV, which just proved to me once again that LIV is just not carrying the water that they wanted to when it came to their whole idea was give the casual golf fan a place to like relax and enjoy the game in a different setting. I think that's been their biggest draw. I don't think that's happened at all the way they've imagined it to. So Jordan Spieth is still a young guy. Dustin Johnson still apparently the most popular golfer in the world. This is Underdog.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code DIVPIV to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Good girl.
Let's get back into the resuscitation of golf and everything wonderful about it here, bud. So where were you leading us here? Because I think you're about to go into the specifics of
how golf should run if we're going to incorporate everybody who's at the table right now and all of everybody's wants and wishes. All right. So again, the reason the LIV isn't working is because of lack of talent, environment, money, whatever. The overall product just sucks. Yep. I'm fine with 54 holes, music, shotgun start, whatever. It's fine. You can get used to watching all that. The team aspect as it's set up just doesn't work. It's an individual sport. It's in the DNA. You only need one person to go. You're playing against par. You're playing against the course. As you add people and competitors, it gets more intriguing, which is why the US Open, 10,000, 15,000 people try to qualify every year. So when you put that into perspective, you've climbed a huge mountain.
Yeah.
Anyway, the way that the team golf is set up right now is not going to work. So we got to have no more set teams, but instead we'll have 60 players in this league. You take the top 12 finishers from the previous season going into the next year. You have a big blowout draft, first tournament of the season. And the number one guy gets the number one draft, and you're going to just draft 3 guys, which means there's going to be 12 assholes sitting there, not on a team for the first tournament. Sorry. Better luck next time. Now, half of the tournaments, those 12 will be able to go play as free agents and collect individual money. That way they're also able to showcase their talent if they want to get drafted the next week. The other half, which might be those like signature events, they can't. Sorry, better luck next time, get on this. So you go out, you play your 54 holes, whatever. I think if this is going to be a partnership moving forward, it'll be 72, but we'll save LIV for now, and then we'll kill them and we'll move it on to 72 holes. After that tournament, and so we can, and here's how the team aspect comes in. So you got that draft. That's your tournament for that week. That's your team for that week. That's it. And we can decide how the money works. We can either say that all teams are guaranteed. There's 12 team pots or purses that gets divvied up, and then only maybe the top half of the individuals get paid. I don't know, introduce a cut somehow, or do it like they do now, where it's all the individuals still get a little bit of money, but maybe only the top 6 teams finish in the money. So either way, you're introducing a cut, which eliminates that objection that a lot of people have had, or at least a little more risk. It's not just, show up and it's an exhibition. And we've introduced the teams. Now, these guys only play 14 weeks a year. So let's space the tournaments out, no back-to-back. And in between tournaments 1 and 2, you take the top 12 individual finishers. Who gives a shit if they're on the same team? Sorry, not anymore. You're the 12 captains for week 2, and you follow that moving forward. And it's not a snake draft, but you do have a draft every week. And instead of 1 to 12, you invert it. You finish 12, you get to pick first this time. And that way we're trying to organically kind of mix it up. And you're not too butthurt. You're still a team captain if you're in the top 12. Cool, great, grand. You're mixing it up. We're not going to have static teams. However, if you are lucky enough to be a team captain, you've already worked with marketing and you've got like a theme or a logo and a name. So we don't have 12 teams. We have potentially 48 teams. And, I have my whole shtick that my guys are going to wear that week. And that way I, the individual, am still the center of attention. That's what golf is about. My brand. John Rahm has surrendered his brand to Legion 13. Nobody gives a shit about Legion 13. What do you know about Legion 13? It's John Rahm's team. What do you know about Range Goats? It's Bubba Watson's team. What do you know about Smash? It's Brooks Koepka's team. So take that part that we actually kind of identify with and use that as leverage, because that way you maybe can get some more guys to jump over and join you. Instead of asking you to take this money and surrender your identity and play under this umbrella, how about this? It is going to be team golf, but we're going to celebrate you. We're going to try to use this platform to elevate you. And then that way you might be able to entice, the 60 top guys to come over, because there's a little more in it for them personally. And it's not so much more of, again, surrendering their identity or whatever to the greater idea of some team golf. So you keep team golf, because this also follows very closely with how these guys prepare. Money games. That's all it is.
They all play the money games, and half these guys already have their own brands and clothing lines with their own brand logos and whatever. And most of it is followed this format of like their initials and a number or whatever. But that already exists. This just now gives them an opportunity, like you said. They not only showcase themselves, but they also get to showcase their product line, and that gets put on a bigger scale. And all of a sudden, it diversifies their opportunity is what it does.
And now somebody out there is going to go, well, does everybody on the team have to wear that gear that week? I would say build it in the contract. You have to wear an article. You have to show that person's logo, because that's the rules of the game, especially if we're going to put this much money out there. Then sure. It's not all about your artistic freedom and your athlete. Again, remember, the only reason you have that much damn money is because of the eyeballs. And that brings me to my next point. When you start building in these drafts in between each week, then you get schmucks like you and me and everybody else who has an opinion going, oh, what's their record as a captain? How many times have they been drafted? What is their average draft place? Where do they get drafted when they play in this continent?
Or do they start looking at the stats the way we do when picking our fantasy lineups?
Exactly.
Their teams. Are they looking at strokes gained approach and all this other jazz and stats that we focus on? Are we now factoring that into how they're going to pick their teams? Like, that's fascinating.
And that's where we have these live drafts, where if you've only got 12 teams a week, you can get an hour and a half content out of that. These guys are only picking 3 people each. And so you can do a round, and then you can kind of almost like a Bachelor kind of setting where everybody makes their pick, and then Chris Harrison can sit up there and just say like, all right, DJ, with your first pick, I noticed that you went with the Goocher there, even though blah, 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 blah. Like, what was your thought? You know, he hasn't been playing well in the Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, no, but I just got a feeling he's been hitting it good on the ring. I mean, you get more out of it. Right now, people, what they're understanding is we don't necessarily care too much. The masses don't care too much about golf. I'll watch a hobo hit, 4-iron across the street at a trash can for an hour if it means I get to watch golf. Nah, not that desperate, but sometimes.
I was gonna say that's pretty.
But we want the drama. We want the stories. Why is Full Swing so successful? Not because everybody
stories.
Like, why does Anna? Is your girl's Anna or Anna?
It's Anna.
It's Anna. Anna is what my daughter tells me every time I try to say Anna about her Elsa and Anna doll. Yep. Why does Anna give a shit about Joel Damon? Because he's a likable guy. He's a relatable guy, and
she actually likes Wyndham Clark more. Wyndham Clark is her boy. I'll say
there's a different kind of like for Wyndham Clark. I'll admit that too. He got my morning wood a little bit this week.
She found herself this weekend anytime I had the golf on, asking how Clark was doing, where he was doing, what each shot meant. Like, and I said, "See, you're following." But I said, "This is how you get into golf. You found a guy, you like his story, you have a reason to cheer for him. The more you start watching golf, the more you start hearing about their stories, you're gonna keep." I said, "The beautiful thing about golf is that it's hard to hate as a fan. It's hard to hate any of the golfers. Like every now and then one very polarizing personality comes along and you dislike it quite a bit." Exactly. Yes. And old school Sergio Garcia, like some of those, but some of these guys were just like, they kind of embrace that role.
You don't have a Draymond Green. You don't have a true villain.
Yeah. But most of these guys, you're going to hear their story, which the broadcast will put out there during any tournament, and you're going to be like, "Oh, well, that sounds like I now want." And you find yourself just picking up these stories along the way as you keep watching golf, and you find yourself finding reasons to cheer for these guys the more you watch it. Wyndham Clark is her number one.
He's my number one right now too. He's a good looking dude. The way that Anna talks about Wyndham Clark reminds me of the way that my roommate used to talk about Adam Scott.
Oh geez,
like that. That's where
Adam Scott.
Old school shit. Old school Adam Scott
with that Aussie accent.
It's the accent. It's the fact that he looks like a supermodel, and then he modeled his swing after Tiger Woods. Literally, if you look at Adam Squat, man,
you're all over the
If you look at Adam Scott's swing and you go back to old school Tiger, I mean, that's basically when he was growing up. He's like, that's the best golfer in the world. I want to swing like that. You would not fucking catch me a million miles near Jack Nicklaus's swing. And he would probably admit that. He's one of those kind of cranky mechanical swings, but it works for him. Wyndham Clark is definitely, you know what that made me realize also watching the players this week. And this might be one of the biggest revelations I've had in a very, very, very long time. I don't have a favorite golfer. It's weird. So, like I would say NASCAR is up there with golf and those individual sports, or even tennis, where, a lot of folks, and you root for certain things, but especially in NASCAR, people got their guy, they got their number, number 47 Chevrolet, don't let me down, whatever the hell it is.
There's some loyalty in that sport.
It is. And I would say that Tiger has transcended that. He's not even on the favorite list anymore. There's Mount Rushmore, and then there's where Tiger is, and, Jack and those guys. And so but for the longest time, it was easy to say Tiger was my favorite. I don't know. I don't have a favorite anymore. I think I really do go into each week and I try to find what's a good story to follow. I
agree.
Fuck. Sorry. What's a good story to follow? Who are we rooting for? Who's living out of their car? Who was a bouncer last week?
I know.
Who's Scottie Scheffler? Grandma shows up on the weekend and then all of a sudden he goes, bananas.
He decides he's Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore. That's what that sounded like. Grandma brings her over to the green. He calms down and hits the shot.
I like that she latched on to Wyndham Clark, both for his looks and that story. And we go back to the Full Swing episode, putting him and Joel Damon side by side. Joel Damon, after day one, I think he texted me, and after day one, he was like 107th or something like that, and he finished top 10. I think he tied for 10th.
Yeah. He had back-to-back 5 unders, and I think I think in the final round, I feel like he still shot like a 4-under.
Gotta know. I think I saw it earlier today. It might be Gino Benali's birthday, because Corn Ferry Tour reshared a post of Gino and Joel from like 10 years ago when they were first together. And I guess like Joel shot 66 on Gino's birthday or whatever. But I'm going to be curious to find out if Joel did follow through, and if he is seeing a sports psychologist, mental coach, whatever you want to call it. And also seeing Wyndham Clark and the drastic shift from his temperament and his stereotype 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when he was kind of who's another hothead that got it together. God,
I mean,
Zurich. Bubba Watson. Bubba Watson's a perfect
Watson
example.
was,
One of those that would just lose it. And finally, it was his caddy, who was Ted Scott, by the way, Scottie Scheffler's caddy, who pulled Bubba aside and was like, basically, we got to do something about this. His wife, caddy, they all got him together. People forget about Ted Scott. Ted Scott's had a decent little run. He's made, I think, $4.5 million looping for Scottie Scheffler in the last 2 years. Not a bad gig for holding the bag and reading some putts.
Not bad at all. But yeah, so that's Wyndham Clark is here to stay, I guess. What were we even talking about before what detail were we on before we?
Why are you worried about like
Wyndham
direction and with Wyndham Clark?
Because you're onto something great here. I don't want to lose sight of that. You're onto
great.
something that I agree with, because I do think the team asked. Oh, this is where I want to go. I just remembered what we get in with the draft, because we were talking about the draft aspect of these, what could be with these teams. What this also gets us, because like you said, if there is a break between the rounds where these guys that have been drafted are in like a room together or whatever, hanging out, watching the rest of it, and they're being interviewed, we get this natural kind of competition at that point. You said The Bachelor, and it made me think of this, where these guys are now this guy, Sergio comes in drafted, 2 spots after Patrick Reed, and now Sergio's got a hair across his ass because he's like, well, wait a minute now. I'm kind of pissed that Patrick Reed got taken before me. Now we get this kind of natural competition that's bound to break out, because that's what happens when you put a room full of competitive, testosterone-filled guys on TV and in this mode. Like, they're gonna start talking crap, and that's what we love to see. We want to see the drama. We want to see that kind of back and forth competitive action between these guys, and I think we would get that naturally. That's not even something I think they would have to force, so that the interviewer or whoever's in there with them would have to really chase. I think it would just come naturally for these guys, and I would watch that. I'd watch that on, and hell, with the way Netflix is they're hosting a freaking live boxing match between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson.
Stop.
How much of a farce that's going to be, but if networks like Netflix is going to get into sports, maybe they hold a draft, or like I said, YouTube
for sure.
YouTube alone would be perfect for holding the live draft, because YouTube is already kind of dipping their toes in the water as well with this stuff. So I think there's just tremendous opportunity if they, once again, we've said this all along from the start, if they got to make the right decisions and play it right. It's so key at this young stage of what they are. They got to stay kind of focused on what they are and not get ahead of themselves, and they could do it right.
The draft, this like weekly, bi-weekly draft format too works because we're in the era of podcast media and long form media, where again, schmucks like us will sit around, whether we're at work or working out or traveling in the car, or whatever, and we'll listen to people talk for 2.5, 3 hours and break down, why certain guys are on certain teams, who's going to play well. And again, with these weekly teams, and you shake up the contest like that, maybe it's weekly games too. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to see more team golf integrated in some way, shape, or form. And as a matter of fact, I texted you just before the show started. It looks like in the Olympics in 2028, this is kind of breaking-ish news. I don't know if we're breaking this or spraining it, but it's been announced that there's talks underway and they're preparing to integrate a co-ed team event into the Olympics, into Olympic golf. And I think that's wonderful after the Grant Thornton and how much attention that got. And then we see just, it's there. It's also one of the few sports where you can do this, because even in tennis, it doesn't necessarily work as well. The dudes just hit it so much freaking harder than the females in tennis that it's
mixed doubles and curling is fantastic to watch at the Olympics. So there we go. Same as golf.
I'm a curling junkie. But in golf, you very easily we saw that in the match recently too. Just put whatever tee is appropriate for your average tee ball distance or whatever you want to, however you want to dictate it. Put them there, and then the game is basically from 200 yards in. And I got to say, once again, I really do appreciate all the support that you're showing me in my week off of working in the short game. Again, if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok at this Buds for you, don't forget the E. I don't want to get sued. In honor of Scottie Scheffler leading the field from back-to-back weeks off the tee, I have encouraged everyone to pause on the short game work and get a little limber and work on positioning yourself off the tee. Notice it's not the longest. He didn't lead everybody in driving accuracy.
Nope.
He just put himself in position more often than not. I will say it's Tiger-esque. The way that he has been able to manipulate this length and his control. And again, he's not just bombing it down there and hoping that he doesn't miss on the wrong side. He almost is always in play. He doesn't make big mistakes. And really, after what was going on with his neck, I think that this win
I
at the
know.
Players is probably it's legendary. I hate to be hyperbolic about it, but again, to put a bow on it, it is the epitome of what a golf broadcast tournament, whatever you want to call it, should be. And it had nothing to do with just I would say well, I guess it was volume. We had a volume of really, really good players that allowed us to get this. You're not going to get that at a live event. And again, I go back to just because it is such a limited field, you really would need the top 50 to lock it in. And even then we saw this with the WGCs. Does it really scratch the itch we're looking for? No.
Nope.
So I think we're going to have by the time this is all said and done, there is going to be some sort of new global tour. I think it will just be the PGA Tour will go global. I think that's what's going to happen is the PIF is going to say, what kind of money do you need to integrate, some of the locations that we have put a flag, put a footprint into, and then how would you keep, because at this point, PGA Tour's got their money. And I've said at this point about 17 times in the last 3 minutes, it's driving me nuts. They've got their money.
Many
so
points.
This is all cherry on top. Anything coming from the PIF. I mean, $3 billion is nothing to shake a stick at. So I don't know who's kind of in the catbird seat, but I guess the no news was good news mantra rang true here because we were all thinking that this silence was a bad sign, especially with Liv out there chirping. And the one thing that Rory said too about Liv when he was talking about meeting with Yasser, all he said was the people at Liv, and then he paused. He's like, Norman. He's like, they've been doing this guy a disservice, which to me says that Yasser is saying, this is my vision for what global golf could become, or this is how I would like to contribute to the sport. And Greg Norman has, what we all thought was happening, and it's kind of coming true. It's his own personal little revenge fantasy from getting shot down in the 90s when he tried to introduce world professional golf the first time around. And the PGA Tour is like, shut the front door. We've got a good thing going here. And I think that had the DP World Tour taken that partnership opportunity with Liv, this would be a whole different ball game. But since they didn't, and they kept that strategic alliance with the PGA Tour, I'm not going to say they're kicking themselves, but I do think that they're kind of feeling maybe a little third wheelish. So I say keep it on the DP World Tour as well, because who knows if the PIF says, here's your big thing of money, we're not going to kill Liv, we're just going to stop supporting it. Maybe the DP World Tour says, hey, I'm your Huckleberry.
That would be interesting, an interesting turn if it goes that way. But one thing I would realize this weekend that the Live Tour does not have that the PGA Tour has that I would love to watch week in and week out. I fell in love personally with Fridays with Smiley. I thought him and Kisner on Friday at the 17th hole was.
I'm about to piss my pants. So you go in on Fridays on Smiley, and I'll be right back.
Okay, because the chemistry that Kisner and Smiley Kaufman, if you haven't seen it, this is something they've been doing for a few weeks now. But Smiley Kaufman on Fridays will be out on the course, real close to where the players walk by, to go to the green on a designated hole for that course. And he sits up and he's got a little desk there and he talks golf. He talks about what's happening on that hole, and then as the players pass by, he gives them little jabs and pokes fun with them, has fun with them, however you want to look at it. And it is just good content. It breaks it up from your normal, what you expect to see when you're thinking of a PGA golf broadcast and talking. So what Smiley Kaufman, and then when Kevin Kisner is pulled into it, because he's still not necessarily full-time, but Kevin Kisner in there this week I thought was just a perfect match between the two of them. They had Keith Mitchell came down and sat down with the two of them for a little bit, and he was fantastic on there as well. And
poured water down one of their backs.
He did. He poured water down Smiley's back. And then who else joined him? This another guy. I'm blanking on the other bigger name than Keith Mitchell joined him for a little bit there too. But either way, just the way they
having the players like stop in there and get that live look.
Yeah, but they had another guy who I'm just blanking on right now, stayed with them for like a while. But Kevin Kisner, he needs to do this.
I think he's going to. I think he's going to be the permanent replacement here soon. Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if they go throughout the year with him doing a couple of. He's not ready to hang it up 100%, but he can always go the Zach Johnson, Steve Stricker route where he'll get some sponsors exemptions. He's probably, either made enough money to have a couple more years, or he's just ready. He's going to transition out, and he's kind of like, the game has passed me by. But I agree. I think Kiz needs to be the guy that takes over that spot where they've got Smiley and Colt Nost, and we do have a nice generation coming through.
Yeah.
Sneaky good story on the week for me, though. It was because it was the 50th anniversary of the Players, and Gary Koch and Roger Maltby were kind of the purists and the traditionalists will say they were unceremoniously not renewed at the end of 23 or 22, whatever. They were just kind of let go. And I think it's because they are the reason we feel bad or kind of like, what the hell happened, is we come from an era of limited media access to where when Johnny Carson retired, holy shit, it's the biggest thing in the world. Well, that's because there wasn't, 57 late night shows and 500 podcasts every night to choose from. So with these guys, we just didn't have the bandwidth to do a proper send off, I think. So to bring them back to talk and, to do commentary for a couple of days, like the old days at the Players, I thought was really, really cool. Roger Maltby had me tearing up when he signed off, saying, this has been a lot of fun. I really miss doing this. Gary Koch, he just kind of very quietly, signed off as well, but he did give some insight. If you didn't get this story, this is actually pretty cool. Everybody remembers in 2001. And if you don't, look it up. You've heard the phrase better than most. Better than most. And it's talking about Tiger Woods in the back of 17. And he's got a long putt, 60 some odd feet. And it's during the second round. And he would go on to win that Players Championship. Yep. His first. And so that's why the better than most, it is up there with his chip in on 16 at Augusta, but it is one of the most watched videos the USGA or the PGA Tour has. Sorry, the PGA Tour has, is that his putt on the 72nd hole at the US Open in 2008 is the most watched USGA video. But anyways, when Gary said that, it's not like he had that line in his back pocket. What you don't really hear is Johnny Miller, who was still on the call, says to Gary, how does it look? And I thought that was really cool that nobody really remembers that. Like, Gary was prompted, how does it look? He didn't just say this is better than most. And so that to me is he was just doing a natural conversation. Well, it looks better than most, and then all of a sudden that becomes one of the most iconic lines. There are podcasts that use it in their intro. There's merch out there. People go there. Mike Tirico even said it when he got to the Players earlier in the week. He said 50, 60 balls he must have hit from that spot up there. And then somebody said, did you make any of them? He said, no comment. But that was another kind of the Gary Koch and Roger Maltby throwback, I think was fun. And I think that's also something where, like Paul Azinger has said, first of all, Paul, pardon my language, fuck Paul. He now that he wasn't renewed, he's all out there going, golf's got a problem, they've got issues, this fractured nature. It is
sounds like someone's trying to get a job somewhere else.
Either that, I wouldn't go that extreme, maybe you do, but it's so hard to take somebody seriously. That's right up there with, you're fired. No, you can't fire me, I quit.
Exactly.
It's like, well, golf is fractured. You know what? I'm glad we got a couple minutes left, because this has been a bee in my bonnet forever. And it goes to the way that some of the stuff that's going on is talked about. Golf's not fractured. We're not in a bad place with the sport. If it bleeds, it leads, which is why we're drawn to the negativity, which is why yours truly and Mr. Duck over there try to shed some light in this dark world of golf for you all, but see the bright side of things. But when I hear people say golf is divided, no, it's not divided. It's competition by nature. There's always going to be people head to head, whether it's on the business side of things, on the field, off the field. It is the nature of sport, is competition. So stop trying to get clicks and get people worked up with this fractured nature of the sport. Not to mention, and I go back, PGA Tour has been around for a couple decades now, generations. Live is but a moment of time, and it's a couple of bags. And as you alluded to earlier, it was simply the PIF's way of getting the attention of the PGA Tour.
It's exactly what it was. And the fans that out there that are outraged and are quote unquote divided from the sport, they're the same fans who just like to be mad about things, who just like to be offended, and they enjoy just having a reason to yell at other people. And that's all they're doing. They're putting out things on social media that they know are just going to drive people crazy on purpose. It's clickbait. It's all just what it is. And yes, I do still think that now that all this is kind of coming full circle with the PIF, that Liv was strictly like a Trojan horse for not necessarily in this way that they're sneaking in. I think it was clearer than that, but the PIF long-term goal always was to invest in the PIF's long-term goal was always to invest in the PGA. and Liv was just like their tryout and their proof of concept that they could handle kind of the supporting a sport league, all because they've supported sports teams and they've supported all that, but they've this was like their biggest team league that they've supported to this point, and that's, I think that was always their end goal, and now they're gonna get it. It looks like. We'll see. Did you see when they were going down to Bermuda, all the people tracking everyone involved's planes, and someone even was tracking Tiger's yacht. They were tracking both his private plane and his yacht because they were trying to figure out who's going to be there. Look, the second that meeting was announced, we all knew who was going to be there. Like, that wasn't a secret.
No, and there was even some player directors, again, Malnati saying, I might be going to a meeting. I don't know. I haven't been told about a meeting, but I heard an announcement about a meeting. It was, and I think it's kind of, for a guy like him, these aren't the kind of meetings you know about ahead of time. They're the kind of meetings that you are just taken to in the moment.
Well, but sure, which is fine. Ricky Fowler riding shotgun with Tiger back in the day, so he just got taken to that meeting.
The Liv might have a place to survive here too, because if Mr. Yasser if team golf is his thing and Liv was his baby, I also don't discount the fact that Liv could stick around, but it might get relegated itself. We've talked about this before. Yeah. What a TV show that would be, where you want a season-long Q school. Yeah, take those 48, maniacs who think that they can grind it out on the PGA Tour, put them in a Big Brother house, put them somewhere for, 8, 10, 12 weeks, whatever this Live season is going to be, and make it a thing. And there you go. Half of you get to go on the PGA Tour. The other half, you get a chance to stick around at Live, and the rest of you, good luck on the Asian Tour, International Series, etc.
So what you're saying is revitalize Golf Channel's old Big Break reality show. Remember that? Hey, that was entertaining as hell to watch. I think was still a thing.
And I think Tony Finau might be the biggest name to come out of that. I remember I saw that when that would come on, and I'd think like, man, I could do that. I could hang with those guys.
I could hit those panes of glass. I hit it over the wall.
Yeah, and then you go out and you play with somebody who's just that next gear above you. It's like the guy who can school everybody at his local, health club, and then he goes down to Rucker Park and he's like, all right, different kind of pickup game. All right, this is not what I thought I was going to play. What have we missed? What's lingering out there? I know this is week 2 of Boudreaux on the road. We'll be back at Witch City Studios, not Witch Titty Studios, although I'm sure there's a place called Witch Titty Studios somewhere. But I'll be back at Witch City Studios.
Mass, I'm disappointed. I'm already disappointed if it's not.
I don't know if they're allowed to have strip clubs. If they are, would the Witch's Titty not be a great name for a strip club?
I don't see how you can't do that. I just like, if strip clubs were allowed, you have to name it that. There's no way about it.
The Witch's Titty. Cold beer, hot chicks. I'm going to get Me Too'd in our 3rd season. All right, land this plane. Like I said, it's been a fun 2 weeks on the road, the Valspar. And then next week, it is a little bit of a lull, folks. Hang in there. There's plenty of off-season or off-field stuff going on. We're going to go back to Texas. Great story time in Texas. We're going to be talking about Ben Hogan. We're going to be talking about the Colonial, all the great things that come out of West Texas, probably Tin Cup being the greatest. So we'll get into that as well. Other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed their players and their St. Patty's Day. And Augusta is just around the corner.
It's just around the corner. If you want your morning fix of golf news, and just real life news, on Instagram, Bud said it earlier, at this Bud's for you. He posts daily morning videos, just awesome listens. And then if you want your kind of rounds 3 and round 4 tournament recaps and previews on Saturday and Sunday mornings, you can check out me on YouTube at That Sports Podcast Network with the Morning Wood over there. But that's going to do it for us tonight. If you want a little tip for the day, be like Jay Moynihan, say you don't want something public, and then put it out there in the news yourself. I'm Andrew LeDuc. This is Bud Copeland. And as always, stay classy, my friends.